The autumn evening had settled over Manhattan like a silk scarf, lights from the skyscrapers twinkling against the darkening sky. Olivia Wright sat alone at the corner table of CL Blue, absently turning her wineglass between manicured fingers. The restaurant, perched on the 35th floor with panoramic views of Central Park, had been her selection, a place where she felt comfortable, in control. At 43, Olivia had built Wright Innovations from a small tech startup into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Her life was meticulously organized, every decision calculated, every investment scrutinized. But tonight, she'd done something completely uncharacteristic, agreed to a blind date arranged by her persistent assistant, Jenna. Olivia glanced at her watch, a rare vintage Patek Philippe that had been her first significant purchase after her company went public. 8:30. He was 30 minutes late. She released a controlled sigh, making a mental note to remind Jenna that punctuality ranked high on her list of non-negotiables. She should have known better than to agree to this arrangement. Dating was complicated enough without adding the weight of her fortune into the equation. Most men either became intimidated by her success or saw her as nothing more than a trophy to be won. The sommelier approached, offering to refill her glass. Olivia declined with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was giving this mystery man exactly 5 more minutes before she would leave. New York's most influential businesswoman didn't wait around for anyone, no matter how highly recommended they came. Her phone remained face-up on the table, deliberately visible in case Jenna sent an update. The screen remained stubbornly dark. Olivia surveyed the restaurant, taking in the other diners. Couples leaning in close, business associates closing deals, a family celebrating what appeared to be a graduation. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere, with someone. The thought pricked at a vulnerability she rarely acknowledged. Just as she was reaching for her clutch, prepared to end this failed experiment in normal human dating, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. 2 young boys, identical in appearance with unruly dark hair and bright blue eyes, were making their way directly toward her table. They couldn't have been more than 8 years old, dressed in matching navy blazers and khaki pants that suggested they had come from somewhere formal. What struck Olivia wasn't just their unexpected presence in this upscale restaurant, but the determined look on their small faces. The maitre d' was hurrying behind them, clearly flustered that 2 unsupervised children had breached his carefully controlled domain. "Young gentlemen, you cannot simply—" But the boys had already reached Olivia's table. They stood side by side, looking up at her with an earnestness that temporarily silenced whatever objection she might have had. "Are you Miss Olivia?" the boy on the left asked, his voice carrying a confident tone that belied his years. Olivia straightened, surprised to hear her name. "I am," she replied cautiously. The twins exchanged a quick glance, some unspoken communication passing between them. The second boy stepped forward, offering a disarming smile that revealed a missing front tooth. "Dad's sorry he's late," he announced as if delivering a well-rehearsed line. "He sent us to tell you that he got stuck in traffic coming from Brooklyn. There was an accident on the bridge." Olivia blinked, processing this unexpected turn of events. "Your father is Matthew?" she asked, recalling the name Jenna had provided for her blind date. The boys nodded in unison. "I'm Ethan," said the first boy, "and this is my brother Lucas." He gestured to his twin, who gave a small wave. "Dad said to tell you he'll be here in 5 minutes, and that you look exactly like your picture." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Did he now?" A mix of emotions swirled through her, irritation at being kept waiting, confusion about why her date would send his children ahead, and an unexpected curiosity about what kind of man would bring twin boys to a first date. "We're supposed to be having dinner with our aunt tonight," Lucas explained, leaning in conspiratorially. "But she got sick, and Dad couldn't find a sitter." "So he's bringing you to our date?" Olivia asked, unable to mask her surprise. Ethan shrugged. "He said you might not want to meet us yet, but he didn't have a choice. He was going to cancel, but then he said that would be even worse." The maitre d' had caught up to them, looking apologetically at Olivia. "Miss Wright, I'm terribly sorry for this interruption. Should I escort these young gentlemen back to the lobby?" Before Olivia could respond, the restaurant's entrance doors opened again, and a tall man rushed in, slightly out of breath. Even from a distance she could see he was handsome in a rugged, unpolished way. Dark hair touched with premature silver at the temples, a strong jawline shadowed with stubble, and broad shoulders beneath a charcoal suit that looked well-made but not designer. When he spotted the twins at her table, his expression shifted from anxiety to dismay. He quickly crossed the restaurant, weaving between tables with mumbled apologies. "Ethan, Lucas," he said as he reached them, his voice a mixture of exasperation and embarrassment. "I told you to wait by the hostess stand." He turned to Olivia, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "Miss Wright, I'm Matthew Taylor. I cannot apologize enough for being late and for—" he gestured toward the boys, "this unorthodox introduction." Up close, Olivia could see the weariness around his eyes, but also a genuine warmth in them, a deep blue that matched his son's. There was something disarmingly honest about his face, lacking the polished veneer she was accustomed to in her usual social circles. "Your sons were just explaining the situation," Olivia replied coolly, still unsure how to feel about this development. Matthew placed his hands gently on his son's shoulders. "Boys, why don't you sit at that empty table right over there while I speak with Ms. Wright for a moment?" He nodded toward a nearby table just within eyesight. The twins seemed about to protest, but something in their father's expression silenced them. They trudged to the indicated table, occasionally glancing back with undisguised curiosity. "May I?" Matthew gestured to the chair across from her. Olivia nodded, more intrigued than she cared to admit. Matthew sat down, exhaling deeply. "I should explain. My sister was supposed to watch the boys tonight, but she came down with the flu. Their regular sitter is away at college, and I couldn't find anyone on short notice." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I was going to call and cancel, but Jenna mentioned how difficult it was to get you to agree to this date in the first place. I thought it would be worse to stand you up completely." "So you brought your children to a blind date at one of the most expensive restaurants in Manhattan?" Olivia asked, unable to decide if this was the most inconsiderate or most refreshingly honest beginning to a date she'd ever experienced. Matthew winced. "When you put it that way, it sounds like a terrible decision, and maybe it was. But the boys have been excited about this all day. They've never met anyone who owns their own company before. They think you're some kind of superhero." His lips quirked in a half-smile. "I promised them they could say hello, and then I was going to ask if you'd be open to rescheduling for another night when I have proper childcare." Olivia glanced over at the twins, who were now attempting to fold their napkins into elaborate shapes, clearly failing but determined nonetheless. There was something endearing about their earnestness, about the way they kept stealing glances in her direction. She returned her gaze to Matthew, studying him with new interest. "And what do you do, Mr. Taylor, when you're not chaperoning twins or keeping billionaires waiting?" For the first time, a full smile broke across his face, transforming his features. "I'm a high school history teacher in Brooklyn, nothing quite as impressive as running a tech empire." The waiter approached, hovering uncertainly as he glanced between Olivia, Matthew, and the twins at the nearby table. And in that moment, Olivia Wright, who had built her reputation on making swift, calculated decisions, found herself at an unexpected crossroads. The safe choice would be to politely end this evening, to return to her ordered life where surprises were minimized and variables controlled. But as she looked at Matthew Taylor's hopeful expression, at his sons struggling with their napkins, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, genuine curiosity about another person's story. "I think we need to adjust our plans for the evening," Olivia said, surprising herself with the decision. "Why don't we invite your sons to join us?" The relief that washed over Matthew's face was palpable. "Are you sure?" "I wouldn't want to impose." "I'm sure," Olivia signaled to the waiter. "Could we please have 2 booster seats and the children's menu?" The waiter nodded, disappearing quickly to fulfill the request. Meanwhile, Matthew called the twins over, who approached with barely contained excitement. "Boys, Miss Wright has kindly invited you to join us for dinner," Matthew explained as they scrambled into their seats. "What do we say?" "Thank you, Miss Wright," they chorused in perfect synchronization. "Please call me Olivia," she replied, finding herself charmed by their enthusiasm. "So, you're interested in business?" Ethan nodded vigorously. "I want to build a company like yours someday." "Dad says you make computers that help doctors." "That's one part of what we do," Olivia confirmed, impressed by the boys' knowledge. "We create medical imaging technology that helps doctors see inside the body without surgery." Lucas leaned forward. "Dad showed us your interview in Time magazine. You were on the cover." Matthew looked slightly embarrassed. We did some research before tonight. The boys were curious. Research is always a good idea before any important meeting, Olivia said, directing her words to the twins but glancing at Matthew. There was something refreshing about his transparency, so different from the carefully cultivated personas she typically encountered in her professional life. As they ordered, cheeseburgers for the boys, steak for Matthew, and seared scallops for Olivia, she found herself increasingly intrigued by this unexpected trio. The twins, despite their identical appearance, revealed distinct personalities. Ethan was analytical and precise in his questions, while Lucas displayed a more creative, free-flowing curiosity. So, Olivia directed her attention to Matthew once the boys were occupied with their children's menu activity books. How does one go from teaching history to raising twin boys alone? She realized too late that her question might be insensitive, but Matthew didn't seem offended. That's quite a story, he said, his voice softening. Caroline, my wife, passed away when the boys were 3. Cancer. He said it matter-of-factly, but Olivia noticed how his hand instinctively moved to touch the simple gold band he still wore on his left ring finger. She was an architect, brilliant and ambitious. We met in college, married young. I'm sorry, Olivia said, genuinely moved. Matthew nodded in acknowledgement. It was a difficult time, but we've found our rhythm now. The boys attend the school where I teach, which helps with logistics. We have a small place in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, but it's home. And you've never considered remarrying? Olivia found herself asking, then immediately regretted the personal nature of the question. I apologize, that's none of my business. No, it's a fair question, Matthew replied. The truth is, between teaching and the boys, there hasn't been much time for dating. This is actually my first attempt in almost 2 years. His smile was self-deprecating, and I've clearly mastered it as evidenced by showing up late with unexpected guests. Olivia found herself laughing, a genuine laugh that surprised her with its ease. I've had worse first dates, believe me. Really? I'd love to hear about those, Matthew said, his eyes twinkling with interest. For the next 20 minutes, Olivia found herself sharing dating disaster stories she hadn't told anyone, not even Jenna. There was the venture capitalist who spent the entire evening talking about his yacht collection, the neurologist who analyzed her personality based on her menu selections, and the heir to a hotel fortune who proposed a marriage merger, his exact words, before dessert arrived. The business world does seem to attract some unique personalities, Matthew observed, chuckling at her stories. And what about the education sector? Olivia asked. Any interesting characters in the teacher's lounge? As Matthew described the eccentric but dedicated faculty at Brooklyn Heights Academy, Olivia noticed how his entire demeanor changed when he spoke about teaching. His passion for history and education was evident in every anecdote, every description of helping a struggling student connect with the material. You really love what you do, she observed. I do, he confirmed. There's something incredible about witnessing that moment when a student truly understands something for the first time. It's like watching a light switch on. He paused, looking slightly embarrassed. Sorry, I tend to get carried away talking about teaching. Don't apologize, it's refreshing to meet someone so genuinely passionate about their work. And it was true. In Olivia's world, passion was often performative, displayed when useful, concealed when necessary. Matthew's enthusiasm seemed unfiltered, unstrategic. Their main courses arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. The twins attacked their burgers with gusto, while Olivia and Matthew continued their exchange, finding unexpected common ground despite their different worlds. So Jenna arranged this setup, Matthew said as they were finishing their meals. How did she convince you to agree to a blind date? Olivia smiled, remembering her assistant's persistence. Jenna has been with me for 8 years. She knows me better than almost anyone. After my last relationship ended rather publicly, she hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. The pharmaceutical CEO, Matthew supplied, then looked apologetic. It was in the business section. The boys and I read the Sunday paper together. Yes, well, Olivia continued. After that debacle, Jenna became convinced I needed to date outside my usual circle. She mentioned having a friend whose brother was, and I quote, "Nothing like those Wall Street sharks you usually waste your time with." Matthew laughed. That sounds like Jenna. She and my sister have been friends since college. When Karen mentioned setting me up, I never imagined it would be with someone like you. Someone like me? Olivia raised an eyebrow. Successful, accomplished, intimidating, he clarified quickly, in the best possible way. Before she could respond, Lucas tugged at her sleeve. "Miss Olivia, is it true you have a helicopter?" "I do," she confirmed, amused by the abrupt change in topic. "For business trips." The twins exchanged excited glances. "Can we see it someday?" Ethan asked hopefully. "Ethan, that's not appropriate," Matthew admonished gently. "It's fine," Olivia assured him. "And yes, perhaps someday you could see it." The words surprised her as they left her mouth. She wasn't one to make casual promises, especially to children, yet something about these boys made her want to open doors to possibilities. As dessert arrived, chocolate lava cake for the twins, espresso for the adults, Olivia's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "I'm sorry, it's my CFO. I should take this." She stepped away from the table, moving toward a quieter corner of the restaurant. The call was brief but concerning. A potential security breach in their new imaging software, one that could delay the FDA approval they'd been working toward for months. When she returned to the table, her expression must have betrayed her concern because Matthew immediately asked, "Is everything all right?" "Just a work situation that needs attention," Olivia replied, reluctant to end the evening, but knowing she needed to address this issue immediately. "I hate to cut this short, but I should probably head back to the office." Disappointment flickered across Matthew's face, but he nodded understandingly. "Of course. The demands of running an empire." "Dad, we didn't finish our cake," Lucas protested. "The restaurant can pack it up for you to take home," Olivia suggested, signaling for the waiter. As he arranged for the desserts to be boxed and the bill to be prepared, an awkward silence settled over the table. "I had a lovely time tonight," Olivia finally said, meaning it, despite the unconventional start. "So did I," Matthew replied. He seemed about to say more when his phone chimed with a text message. He checked it, his expression changing to one of concern. "That's odd." "What is it?" Olivia asked. "It's from my sister, Karen. She says someone just came to her apartment asking questions about me, and about tonight's date." He looked up at Olivia, confusion evident in his eyes. "A man claiming to be a private investigator." "A private investigator?" Olivia repeated, equally confused. "Why would anyone be investigating you?" Matthew shook his head. "I have no idea. Karen said he specifically asked about my connection to you." The twins, sensing the adults' tension, stopped their chatter and looked between them with growing concern. "Dad, are we in trouble?" Ethan asked, his earlier confidence faltering. "Nobody, of course not," Matthew assured him. Though Olivia noticed the uncertainty in his voice, he turned back to her. "This is strange. I'm just a teacher. I don't have enemies or secrets." Olivia felt a chill run through her. In her position, she was no stranger to corporate espionage, to competitors seeking leverage. But why target a seemingly unconnected high school teacher unless... "I should go," she said abruptly, gathering her things. The evening that had started so unusually and evolved so pleasantly was now taking a darker turn. "I'll have my driver take you home." "Olivia," Matthew said, reaching across the table but stopping short of touching her hand. "What's going on? Do you know something about this?" She met his gaze, searching for any sign of deception, any hint that this charming evening had been orchestrated for ulterior motives, but all she saw was genuine confusion and concern. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I intend to find out." The sleek black Cadillac Escalade pulled away from the curb, leaving Matthew and the twins on the sidewalk outside their Brooklyn brownstone. Olivia watched through the tinted window as Matthew ushered the boys inside, his shoulders tense, occasionally glancing back at her departing vehicle. Even after they disappeared through the front door, she continued staring at the modest three-story building, trying to reconcile the evening's pleasant beginning with its unsettling conclusion. "Where to, Ms. Wright?" her driver, Robert, asked through the intercom. "The office," she replied automatically, then reconsidered. "Actually, no, take me home first. I need to make some calls in private." As the SUV merged into the late-evening traffic crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, Olivia's mind raced. A private investigator asking questions about Matthew, about their date, couldn't be a coincidence. In her position, paranoia wasn't just justified, it was necessary. Corporate rivals had attempted industrial espionage before, trying to gain access to Wright Innovations' groundbreaking medical technology, but using children as part of a scheme. That seemed beyond even the most ruthless competitors. Yet she couldn't shake the suspicion. The timing was too perfect, a date arranged by her assistant, an unexpected complication with the twins, and now a mysterious investigator making inquiries. It had all the hallmarks of a carefully orchestrated plan to get close to her. By the time she reached her penthouse overlooking Central Park, Olivia had convinced herself that Matthew Taylor was not the sincere, slightly overwhelmed single father he appeared to be. She kicked off her heels in the marble foyer and headed straight for her home office, a glass-enclosed space with panoramic views of the city's glittering skyline. "Call Victor," she instructed her smart home system, and moments later her head of security appeared on the wall screen. "Ms. Wright," Victor acknowledged with a nod. "I was just about to contact you. We've contained the security issue with the imaging software. It appears to have been an attempted breach from an external source, but our firewalls held." "Good," Olivia said tersely, "but that's not why I'm calling. I need you to run a comprehensive background check on someone named Matthew Taylor. He's a history teacher at Brooklyn Heights Academy. Has 2 8-year-old twin sons named Ethan and Lucas. Wife deceased. Cancer." She hesitated before adding, "And he's apparently the brother of Jenna's college friend Karen." Victor's expression remained impassive, though his eyebrow twitched slightly at the unusual request. "May I ask what prompted this?" "Someone claiming to be a private investigator visited his sister tonight, asking questions about him and his connection to me. I want to know who's behind it, and I want to know if Taylor is who he claims to be." "I'll have a preliminary report by morning," Victor promised. After ending the call, Olivia poured herself a glass of scotch from the crystal decanter on her desk. The amber liquid caught the light as she swirled it thoughtfully. Perhaps she was overreacting. After all, Matthew had seemed genuinely surprised by the news about the investigator. If he were part of some elaborate scheme, wouldn't he have been prepared for that development? Her phone chimed with an incoming text. It was from an unknown number. "Thank you for dinner. Despite the strange ending, the boys haven't stopped talking about you. Whatever's happening, I hope you know I'm not involved." Olivia stared at the message, conflicted. Her instinct for self-preservation urged caution, but something else, something she rarely allowed to influence her decisions, whispered that she might be making a mistake in dismissing him so quickly. Before she could decide how to respond, her phone rang. It was Jenna. "I just got a very concerning call from Karen," her assistant said without preamble. "What happened tonight? Your friend's brother mentioned that a private investigator visited her asking questions about him and me," Olivia replied coolly. "What do you know about this, Jenna?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Nothing," Jenna finally said, sounding genuinely confused. "But that's not all. Karen said someone broke into her apartment after Matthew left with the boys for your date. Her laptop is missing." Olivia straightened in her chair. "Was anything else taken? Valuables?" "That's the strange part. She had jewelry, cash, electronics, all untouched. Just her laptop." Jenna's voice lowered. "Olivia, Karen works for the Department of Defense as a cybersecurity consultant. Her laptop would have been heavily secured. The implications were immediate and alarming." This wasn't about Olivia at all, or at least not directly. It was about Karen, which meant Matthew's connection to this situation was through his sister, not through any scheme to target Wright Innovations. "I'm sending security to Matthew's house," Olivia decided aloud. "If someone is targeting his sister, they might go after him next, especially if they think he knows something." "Should I call the police?" Jenna asked. "Not yet. Let me handle this through private channels first. The last thing we need is media attention." Olivia ended the call and immediately contacted Victor again, instructing him to dispatch a security team to Brooklyn. 20 minutes later, her phone rang again. It was Victor. "Miss Wright, we have a situation. When our team arrived at Taylor's address, there were signs of forced entry. The apartment appears to have been searched, but there's no sign of Taylor or the boys." Olivia felt her chest tighten. "Any indications of violence?" "None. It looks like they left in a hurry. One of the neighbors reported seeing them leave with suitcases about 15 minutes before our team arrived." "They're running," Olivia murmured, more to herself than to Victor. She made a quick decision. "Track his phone." "Already done," Victor replied. "Last signal places him near the Hudson River waterfront. Signal went dead 5 minutes ago. Send the team there immediately. And Victor, I'm coming too." Within minutes, Olivia had changed into jeans, a cashmere sweater and practical boots, a far cry from her usual corporate attire. As her driver sped toward the Hudson, she tried Matthew's number repeatedly, each call going straight to voicemail. The waterfront was quiet when they arrived, industrial buildings looming like silent sentinels against the night sky. Victor's team had already secured the perimeter, their black SUVs positioned strategically around an abandoned warehouse. The last signal came from inside, Victor informed her as she approached, looking dubious about her presence at the scene. "We've done thermal imaging. There are 3 heat signatures inside, 1 adult, 2 smaller figures. Matthew and the twins," Olivia confirmed, relief flooding through her. "Let me go in." "Miss Wright, I strongly advise against that. We don't know the situation." "He trusts me," she insisted, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true anymore. "If he's frightened, seeing armed security will only make things worse." After a tense standoff, Victor reluctantly agreed, but insisted on fitting her with a discreet communication device. "At the first sign of trouble, we're coming in," he warned. The warehouse was cavernous, its high ceilings disappearing into darkness. Olivia's footsteps echoed as she made her way deeper inside, following the beam of her flashlight. "Matthew?" she called out, her voice bouncing off concrete walls. "It's Olivia, I'm alone." For a long moment there was nothing but silence. Then, from the shadows, "How did you find us?" Matthew stepped into the light, positioning himself protectively in front of the twins, who peered around him with wide, frightened eyes. He looked nothing like the charming, slightly disheveled teacher from dinner. His expression was hard, wary. "I tracked your phone," Olivia admitted, stopping several feet away from them. "My security team noticed your apartment had been broken into. I was worried." "Your security team," Matthew repeated, a bitter edge to his voice. "Of course you have a security team. Just like you probably have people who can run background checks, access private information, monitor communications." Olivia felt a chill run through her. "Matthew, what's going on? Who are you running from?" "I thought I was running from you," he said quietly. "Or whoever you work with." The accusation stung. "I don't understand." Matthew's laugh was hollow. "After our date, I received a message. Photos of the boys at school, at their soccer practice, at their grandmother's house. The message was clear. Cooperate or they'll be hurt." Olivia felt sick. "Cooperate with what?" "They want access to my sister's work, specifically a defense project she's been consulting on." His eyes narrowed. "The message came minutes after I texted you. After I foolishly used my phone to let you know I wasn't involved in whatever was happening." The realization struck Olivia like a physical blow. "Your phone was compromised. That's how they tracked you here too." She took a step forward, stopping when Matthew tensed. "Matthew, I swear to you, I have nothing to do with this. Yes, I had you investigated, but only after hearing about the private investigator. It was a precaution." "Dad," Lucas whispered, tugging at his father's jacket. "I believe her. She's not a bad person." Matthew hesitated, studying Olivia's face in the dim light. "If you're telling the truth, then who is behind this?" "I don't know," Olivia admitted, "but whoever it is, they're sophisticated enough to compromise your phone and break into 2 separate apartments in one night. That suggests resources, organization." "Corporate espionage?" Matthew suggested. Olivia shook her head. "This feels like something else. The timing, the target, your sister's DoD work, this is bigger than corporate rivalry." She held out her hand. "Let me help you, Matthew. My security team is outside. We can protect you and the boys while we figure this out." For what seemed like an eternity, Matthew didn't move. Then slowly Ethan stepped out from behind his father. "Dad always says we should trust our instincts," the boy said solemnly, "and my instinct says Miss Olivia is telling the truth." Matthew looked down at his son, then back at Olivia. The wariness in his eyes gave way to something else, a desperate hope that he wasn't making a terrible mistake. "Okay," he finally said, taking her outstretched hand. "But if anything happens to my boys—" "It won't," Olivia promised, the weight of that vow settling heavily on her shoulders. "I won't let it." As they emerged from the warehouse into the cool night air, Olivia's security team moving swiftly to escort them to waiting vehicles, she couldn't shake the feeling that tonight's blind date had set in motion events far beyond a simple dinner conversation. Someone had orchestrated this entire situation, and she was determined to discover who and why. The Wright Innovations executive floor was eerily quiet at 2 a.m. The usual bustle of activity, replaced by the soft hum of electronics and the occasional ping from distant servers. Olivia had converted the main conference room into an impromptu command center, with Matthew and the twins settled in her private office down the hall. The boys had finally fallen asleep on the plush leather couch covered with throw blankets bearing the company logo, while Matthew paced nervously between them and the door. "I've established a secure line to Karen," Victor announced, entering the conference room with a tablet. "She's at a DoD safe house in Virginia." Olivia nodded, gesturing for Victor to place the tablet on the table. Karen Taylor's face appeared on screen, the family resemblance to Matthew immediately apparent in her blue eyes and determined expression, though her dark hair was cut in a severe bob that contrasted with her brother's more casual style. "Matthew and the boys are safe?" Karen asked without preamble. "Yes, they're in my office," Olivia assured her. "Now tell me exactly what you're working on that would make someone target your family." Karen's hesitation was brief but noticeable. "It's classified, but given the circumstances," she took a deep breath. "I've been consulting on a quantum encryption protocol for military communications. If compromised, it could expose every secured channel the DoD uses globally." "And the information was on your laptop?" Olivia asked. "No, the laptop is just a secure access point. It contains authentication protocols that, combined with biometric verification, would allow someone to access the network where the actual encryption data is stored." Karen's expression darkened. "But they need me, or someone with my credentials, to complete the access." Victor exchanged a glance with Olivia. "That explains the threats against Matthew and the boys, leverage to force your cooperation. But it doesn't explain the timing," Olivia pointed out, a thought beginning to form. "Why tonight? Why use a blind date as part of this plan?" She turned back to Karen on screen. "When did you tell your brother about me? About this date?" "3 days ago," Karen replied, "after Jenna suggested it." Olivia felt a chill run through her. "And who else knew about the date?" Karen frowned, considering. "Just my department head. I needed to adjust my schedule to watch the boys, so I mentioned it when requesting time off." Her eyes widened with realization. "Colonel Westfield?" "I need everything you have on him," Olivia said, already turning to her computer. "Victor, wake up our cyber team. I want a complete profile on Colonel Westfield within the hour." As Victor left to make the calls, Matthew appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted but alert. "The boys are still asleep," he said quietly, then noticed his sister on the tablet screen. "Karen, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just worried about you and the twins," she assured him. "Olivia's team is looking into Colonel Westfield. He knew about your date tonight. He might be involved." Matthew moved closer to Olivia, his expression troubled. "I still don't understand. What does a military colonel have to do with right innovations? Why involve us in this elaborate scheme?" Olivia was scrolling through search results on her screen, pieces falling into place with alarming clarity. "Because it wasn't about you at all. It was about me." She turned the screen so Matthew and Karen could see. "Colonel James Westfield sits on the board of Meridian Medical Systems, our biggest competitor." "Corporate espionage, after all," Matthew murmured. "Not just espionage," Olivia corrected grimly. "Look at the date. Westfield joined their board 6 months ago, right when we announced our breakthrough in quantum-enhanced medical imaging." Karen gasped audibly. "The same quantum computing principles I've been applying to encryption. They're parallel technologies." "He's playing both sides," Olivia concluded, "using his military position to access your research, then funneling aspects of it to Meridian to help them catch up to our technology." Her eyes narrowed. "And he saw tonight's date as an opportunity to apply pressure on both fronts simultaneously." "But why go after me and the boys?" Matthew asked. "Why not just threaten Karen directly?" "Because I'm too visible," Karen explained. "My work is classified, my movements monitored, but you, a high school teacher with no security clearance, no protection, you were the path of least resistance," Olivia finished softly. "I'm sorry, Matthew. Your family was dragged into this because of me, because of my company." Before Matthew could respond, Victor returned with a young woman in rumpled clothing who looked like she'd been woken from a deep sleep, but was now fully alert, her fingers flying over a laptop keyboard. "This is Zoe, head of our cybersecurity team," Victor introduced her. "She's found something." "Colonel Westfield's been busy," Zoe announced without looking up from her screen. "I've traced unusual data transfers from DoD servers to an anonymous account, begun exactly when he joined Meridian's board." But here's the interesting part. The transfers stopped 3 weeks ago. When did Meridian announce their new imaging prototype? Olivia asked. 3 weeks and 2 days ago, Zoe confirmed. And there's more. Westfield has booked a private jet to Geneva tonight, wheels up in 2 hours. Switzerland, Matthew said, the pieces connecting. Non-extradition for corporate crimes. Olivia was already reaching for her phone. He's running, which means he knows we're on to him. She dialed a number from memory. Senator Mitchell, it's Olivia Wright. I apologize for the hour, but I have information about a national security breach involving classified DoD research and corporate espionage. Yes, I'll hold. While Olivia spoke with the senator, Matthew moved to stand beside her, their shoulders nearly touching. You have a U.S. senator on speed dial, he remarked quietly, a hint of amazement in his voice. She chairs the Armed Services Committee, Olivia explained, covering the phone's microphone, and she owes me a favor. 20 minutes later, Olivia ended the call with a satisfied expression. Military police will intercept Westfield before he boards his flight. The FBI's cybercrime division is already securing Meridian's servers. She turned to Karen on the screen. Senator Mitchell wants you to report directly to the Pentagon at 800. Your security clearance is being upgraded. Karen nodded, visible relief flooding her features. What about Matthew and the boys? Are they still in danger? Westfield was working alone within the DoD, Zoe interjected, still typing rapidly. His communications suggest he was feeding information to a small team at Meridian, but he kept the operation compartmentalized. Once he's in custody, the threat should be neutralized. Nevertheless, Olivia said firmly, I'd like to keep a security detail on Matthew and the boys for the next few weeks, just to be certain. She glanced at Matthew. If that's acceptable to you. He met her gaze, a complex mixture of emotions crossing his face. After everything that's happened, I should probably be running in the opposite direction, he said quietly. But strangely enough, I've never felt safer than I do right now with you. The simple admission sent an unexpected warmth through Olivia's chest. I need to go, Karen interrupted from the screen. My escort is here to take me to a more secure location. Matthew, give the boys my love. Her expression softened as she looked between her brother and Olivia. And Ms. Right, thank you for protecting my family. After Karen disconnected, a heavy silence fell over the conference room. Zoe and Victor tactfully withdrew, leaving Olivia and Matthew alone. What happens now? Matthew asked, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Now you and the boys get some proper rest, Olivia replied. I have a guest apartment in this building. You'll be comfortable there while we sort everything out. And after that, his question hung in the air between them, laden with unspoken possibilities. Olivia found herself at an unfamiliar crossroads. The logical part of her mind, the CEO who had built an empire through calculated decisions, urged caution, distance, a professional resolution to this unexpected entanglement. But another part of her, one she rarely acknowledged, whispered of different possibilities. After that, she said carefully, I believe I owe you a proper date. One without corporate espionage or national security threats, preferably without anyone running for their lives. A slow smile spread across Matthew's face, transforming his exhausted features. I'd like that. He hesitated, then added, The boys would too. They haven't stopped talking about you, even in their sleep. They're remarkable children, Olivia said honestly. You've done an amazing job with them. It hasn't been easy, Matthew admitted. Balancing teaching and parenting, trying to give them everything they need. He shook his head. Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough. You are, Olivia said with surprising conviction. Anyone can see how much they adore you, how secure they feel with you, even in a crisis. Matthew studied her face, his expression thoughtful. You know, when Jenna first suggested this setup, I almost said no. Dating a billionaire CEO seemed like a recipe for disaster. Different worlds, different priorities. And now? Olivia asked, surprised by how much his answer mattered to her. Now I'm thinking that sometimes different perspectives are exactly what we need. His hand found hers on the conference table, his touch tentative but warm. I teach history because I believe in learning from the past. Maybe it's time I started looking toward the future instead. 3 months later, Olivia stood at the edge of a helipad atop the Wright Innovations building, watching as her pilot helped Ethan and Lucas secure their safety harnesses. The boys could barely contain their excitement, bouncing on their toes as they prepared for their first helicopter ride, a promised adventure finally fulfilled. Matthew joined her at the railing, slipping his arm around her waist with the easy familiarity that had developed between them. "Are you sure about this? They might never stop talking about it, I'm sure," Olivia replied, leaning slightly into his embrace. The past 12 weeks had been a revelation. Weekend brunches at Matthew's modest Brooklyn apartment helping the twins with their science projects. Quiet evenings sharing stories of their vastly different lives. Each encounter had peeled back another layer of her carefully constructed persona, revealing a woman even she had forgotten existed. Colonel Westfield was awaiting trial, his scheme exposed and dismantled. Karen had been promoted within the DoD, her work now properly secured and recognized. And Right Innovations had strengthened its security protocols, emerging stronger than before. But the most surprising development had been the natural evolution of four strangers into something that increasingly felt like family. "They're ready for you, Miss Wright," the pilot called over the whir of the warming engines. Matthew squeezed her hand. "Still time to back out. We could just get ice cream instead." Olivia laughed, a free and genuine sound that had become more frequent in recent months. "After ice cream," she promised, "some adventures are worth experiencing together." As they crossed the helipad toward the waiting twins, Olivia reflected on the blind date that had begun with an unexpected introduction and nearly ended in disaster. She had built her empire by calculating risks and controlling variables, eliminating surprises and contingencies. Yet the greatest joy she'd discovered in years had come from the most incalculable variable of all, the human heart. Some blind dates ended badly. Some led to polite but forgettable evenings, and sometimes, very rarely, they led to something extraordinary, a new beginning disguised as a simple hello.